Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. I am your co-host, Suleiman Steele, and today I am joined by Nicole Mitchell. But before we kick off with the podcast, as always, just wanted to let you guys know some events that we have happening in the next few weeks. As always, we have Circle of Influence that happens every Thursday at Corporate Conference Center in Edenvale. $100 a ticket. And yeah, it's an hour and a half of some awesome learning and interacting with other entrepreneurs and business owners. On the 1st of July, we have the Awaken Your Greatness program with Nicole. $100 gets you in. It is a Saturday and it will begin at 9 a.m. And then we also have the Sales Explosion happening on the 4th and 5th of August. As always, all the details for all the events will be below in the comment section. Good morning, afternoon. Yeah, it's 11:38. How are you doing, Nicole?
I'm good, and you, Sudi. It is great to be with you, and to all our listeners on the podcast, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It is great to have you join us.
Yeah, so we're pretty much at the end of the month. We've been, for the month of June, we've been talking environments is greater than will. And I think last week at Circle, you spoke about such a truly awesome topic in terms of that Apple tied nicely into environment is greater than will. And it was basically around abuse. So is there a way, could you please give some context to that word? Because I think that word, especially right now, is very, I don't know, I feel like it might be thrown around a lot without any real context. And I mean, as you like to say, words have very important meaning.
So before I go there, for those of you that are joining us for the first time, and for those of you who don't know who I am, obviously my name's Nicole. I'm married to Barry, and I very much work around mindset and helping you get yourself out of the way of you. And so I specialize in one-on-one coaching around helping people sort of get themselves unstuck from wherever they are. And for some people, they're stuck in success, as crazy as that sounds. And some people are stuck in, the negative stuff that's happening all around them. So, neither is good or bad. It's where you are where you are. And so the topic that we've been talking about in terms of at Circle is environment is greater than will. So pretty much what does that mean? Well, in terms of the environment that you put yourself in will be greater than the will that you have. So, my husband always says, if you go and hang out with a bunch of drug dealers, eventually you're either going to take drugs or you're going to become a drug dealer, because that environment is much stronger than your own willpower to overcome. So it is important to understand that environments can create a safe space for us. They create a space for us to grow and learn, or they create a space for us to do destructive things. And Robert Kiyosaki and a lot of the sort of well-known people throughout history, and I actually don't know who was the original person who said it, but the 5 people that you hang out with, your 5 closest friends, will pretty much be your income level. Why is that? Because that's the environment you put yourself in. So what happened in terms of Circle is we started to talk about, what happens in your environment. And I started to talk about abuse, because abuse is something that, as Sully said, I think a lot of people are not aware of the effects of it and how simple it can be. So, in terms of what is the definition of abuse? Well, in simple terms, the definition of abuse is the action of you or someone needing or wanting something and not getting that something, or what someone needs or wants. So you're not getting what you want. But the other thing is you can be stopped from getting what you want. And it's so important for us to look at, in the environment you're in, are you stopped from getting what you want? Or are you stopped from getting something you need? Or are you being given something you don't need or want? And this is where abuse is, I think so often, without us even realizing, our homes can become abusive, our businesses can become abusive, because we give people things that they don't need or want without realizing that's what's happening. So typically, if you were to put that in a home, if you've got a mother who never had a white wedding, and they didn't have the wedding of their dreams, and so a daughter goes and she gets married, and then the mother starts projecting all her wants for that wedding on the daughter. That's abusive. And I think it's something that we sometimes don't understand the power of, because we kind of look at abuse as, oh, someone abuses alcohol, they're an alcoholic, and it's a big deal. Or abuse is, you're being beaten up and you're being knocked around, and, you got to call the police. And, we kind of see abuse as that, but it's so much more subtle than that. It's those often flippant little throwaway comments, like in terms of, and I say this because I used to do this. I'd say, you did such a great job with your Instagram post, or you did such a great job on the report. It's a pity you didn't hand it in yesterday. So I'm subtly abusing the person, because I'm telling them, yeah, you did a good job, but it wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
Instead of saying to them, well done on, getting the report. Is it possible next time for me to get it a day earlier? It's very different in terms of, I'm saying the same thing, but one is just a very subtle abusive comment. And I think we often underestimate the power of those abusive things. And, often, so if I were to use this example of a young girl, 19-year-old, working her first job, in terms of what she needs, is often a teenager that comes out of school and it's their first job. They need somebody to encourage them. They need somebody to teach them. They need somebody to show them how things work in a job.
Yeah.
They want to be made more of. They want someone to tell them, you're good at this. They want someone encouraging them. They want someone supporting them. Okay. And often we have these school leavers that will go into a new position, and then they will effectively get abused, because the boss is going, well, you should know what to do. So their needs are not being met. As in, or, you signed up as a sales rep, well, go out and sell, go make phone calls.
Yeah.
And their needs are not being met because they have no idea what they actually need to do. Because they signed up for this job that's sales, and so what happens is they then get abused, and then they go, well, this isn't working, so I'm going to leave my job, I'm going to quit, and then I'm going to go somewhere else. And then somewhere else goes, oh, you've worked before, oh, of course you know what you're doing. And then so the cycle repeats itself, and that person who started off as this super excited youngster is essentially just going to get more and more abused wherever they go, because they'll reach a point where people go, well, you should, we expect you to know what's happening. You've had 4 jobs already. What's wrong with you? And we underestimate the damage that abusive behavior does to people, as opposed to going, okay, when somebody new comes in, are we sitting down with them and showing them the rules and saying, this is what we expect of you, let me show you. And we show people what's expected of them, and then we say, well done for doing it, because that's what they need. And often when we're not meeting the needs of people, the environment becomes unsafe. Because, for example, that young sort of 19-year-old teenager that's come out of school suddenly goes, oh, my family's going away over Christmas. I need to, I want to, I'm not going to go away. I'm going to work. And then the boss says, well, we have annual shutdown then, so you have to take leave. And they go, well, no one told me that. And then they get all irritated and they go, or maybe they haven't been there long enough and the boss doesn't pay them what they should, and they go, well, we're deducting a week off because it's annual shutdown, you've only been here a short period of time, so we're deducting your leave off. It'll be sort of, and people are not aware of those little subtleties that are incredibly abusive, but all it comes down to is a lack of communication. And it creates a very unsafe environment for people. And then the will of people is, this is not safe, so they stop inviting people in. So if you've got a youngster that's now a sales rep and they're supposed to be bringing clients into the business and they don't feel safe, well, why on earth would they bring clients into the business? Because they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
So they're not going to bring as much as they want to bring clients into the business. On a subconscious level, they will not, because the environment that they're bringing people into is not safe. So on a subconscious level, they kind of make excuses, they don't do the work, they can't understand why they're not doing the work, and then it becomes, the environment just gets worse and worse and creates more and more chaos.
So in terms of what you're saying, like subtle abuse, right? With how much does that sort of apply to school? So a child who's wanted to be, let's just say, from 6, 7 years old, wanted to be a doctor, and they go through the process, primary school, still want to be a doctor, get to high school, grade 8, and the teacher's like, no, you're too stupid to become a doctor. You don't have the maths. You don't have the marks for maths. And all of a sudden, that dream that this child has had for, I don't know, 12, 13 years has been taken away in a very subtle instance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of school is unfortunately, it's one of the most abusive places on the planet, because kids are being told, no, you can't take this subject, you have to take this subject, you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to do this. And they're being judged by people that are not dealing with their stuff. So, for example, like I said, I know I've said it to people, oh, great job on the report, pity you didn't have it yesterday. Something as subtle as that can just, because they've put all their hard work into it. And it wasn't until I started shifting my mindset and training in terms of with what I'm doing that I realized how destructive some of those comments are. The problem is, as school teachers, they don't realize the effects that people have on them. So I know that the one on Circle on Thursday, the one lady said, how you be so silly to give away all your power to somebody that's going to abuse you? Surely you just move on out of the environment, or it's like, that's just stupid to let somebody take away your power. And it was quite interesting because there was a youngster in the room, and her response was, the reason why I gave that person my power is because they were somebody that I looked up to. They were somebody that I thought was in the know. So when I started working with them, they had way more knowledge than me. They owned a business and they had, X, Y, and Z. And those were things that I wanted to have. So I looked up to them and went, that's the person I want to be. And then I started working in that space. And then I realized that, oh, maybe this isn't what I want, because I don't know that I agree with this. Okay, well, nobody's taught me anything different. So maybe this is the way it's supposed to be in business. And then they kept running and they were going, no, I'm supposed to respect this person. I'm supposed to look up to this person. They know more than I do. They're the right person. And eventually, over a period of time, that young person has realized that how abusive that environment actually was, how much power she gave to the owner of the business, and how much abuse she was actually taking. And she said when she looks back, it was because she was told, well, she believed that person had the thing she wanted. And so now you take a little 5-year-old that goes off to school, and they see this teacher, and they're supposed to respect them, and their mom and dad say you're supposed to respect them, and this person is going to teach you what you need to know, this person is going to help you get through your exam. So you better listen to them. And so we have these people in positions that they are unaware of, one, how much power they have and how much influence they have over children or employees. They're not working on themselves to grow themselves. And a lot of times they're unhappy with their life. And so they bring all this stuff into the space, whether it's school, whether it's work, the employment space, and they start running those negative processes on other people, and it becomes incredibly abusive without anybody even realizing that it's abusive. And that's the sad thing about our school system, is how much of it is actually abusive without us even knowing that it's abusive.
That's crazy, because I mean, like you say, what you're saying is right. It's people in positions of power, people you're supposed to respect, and people you're supposed to trust, that are the ones that usually are doing the more abusive things. And that, so like, I mean, because that now
And
ties. Yeah.
I was going to say, and often they're completely unaware that they're doing those things. It's not intentional.
So then this is like completely different to like somebody, let's just say a boss who's very much aware, and they, for lack of a better word, they just a jerk, right? That they are very much aware that they are abusive, abrasive, rude. So for example, like you said, you had a report that was due, you handed it in a day late. But instead of saying, "Oh, well done on handing it in a day late," the focus is, "You handed it on a day late. Like, you're useless. What is the point of me having this report now?" Right? And it's somebody who's completely So do you think that there is that level of awareness for some abusers, that they know what they're doing?
I think on a level of, that's a subconscious level, they do know what they're doing. But it's a subconscious level, so only if you question them in the right way will they acknowledge it. But a lot of times they believe that they're right.
Yeah.
And so the young lady that we had at Circle on Thursday, I mean, her biggest thing is her boss is always right. And it doesn't matter what you do, he's always right. So if you ask a question, he will make you wrong for asking the question. And then when you don't ask a question, and he will say, well, why didn't you ask a question? What's wrong with you? And he is of the belief that he is 100% correct. Nothing anybody says or does is correct. He's the only person that is right. And so what that does is, one day he can go in and say, this is black, and tomorrow he'll come in and say, this is white. And if anybody tries to point it out to him that he's wrong, he will make them wrong for it. And it doesn't matter how much you try and change that, he believes he's right. And that's his belief system. He is right. And it doesn't matter what anybody says to him, he is right.
Yeah.
So only when he is willing to look at his behaviors will he then realize how abusive he actually is. But until that time that he's willing to look, he believes he's right, and nothing anybody says will change that.
Yeah, as much as you can say to him, what you're doing is abusive, if he doesn't see it that way, then your point is pretty much, because essentially if you were to say that, he'd make you wrong, right?
Correct.
And isn't it sort of like that era of, I mean, I don't know if era is the right word, but like sort of like that generation of, you must be tough, or you must be like this, or so like you're saying, you ask a question, you're wrong. You don't ask a question, you're still wrong. So you're kind of stuck in that, like, okay, well, what am I doing here exactly? Right. And for example, like you guys always teach, asking questions is the answer. You have to ask questions to get to where you want to get to. But for abusers, questions are out of the question.
Yeah, it's a very tough one, because often people are not even aware that they're abusive. So an example, yesterday I went into a store and I had ordered something. It'd be ready on Friday, and of course the stuff's not ready. And I asked one particular person for help, and they're going, can't help you. And I'm like, but I ordered this product from you. Yeah, well, that's not my problem. That, in that instance, that person is not even aware that they're abusive. They're just not present to what they're doing. And in actual fact, their attention is completely stuck on their phone because they were FaceTiming personal call in the middle of work, and their only focus was to the call that they were so engrossed in terms of the FaceTime. Whether they weren't interested or they didn't know or whatever, they didn't help me. And I had to ask 3 times, well, who can? Where do I get help from? I got exceptionally frustrated because I wasn't getting what I wanted, and or the information that I needed. Like, where do I go?
Yeah.
And this is often the problem, is that people. Okay, so we just cut out there a little bit. So I was sharing the story of going into the store, and the person that was supposed to be helping me was more interested in their cell phone, and they weren't giving me what I needed or wanted. They were completely not present to that fact. And so the behavior becomes abusive, and they're not even aware of it. So in terms of that, it is being aware that most people are completely unaware that they're abusive. They're just not present to themselves. And so in that instance, I was trying to ask her, well, where do I go? And they were saying, well, you go to the collections. I'm like, where is that? It's by the collections. Well, you're not helping me. You're not giving me what I want.
Yeah.
And so it's in that instance, that person is completely unaware to the fact that they're not present. They're not giving me what I want, because they're so self-focused that they're just, all their attention is going inwards towards them. This is what I need to do right now. I need to be talking to my friend on my cell phone, even though okay, let me rephrase that. I want to be talking to my friend, even though I need to be working. I need to be present with the customer, but I want to be talking on my cell phone.
Yeah.
So often what happens is our wants, and this is where it's so important. A need is something that we have little power of choice over, whereas a want, we have a lot more power of choice over. So the problem is wants are often connected to emotions. So, for example, I need to go to work today, but it's cold, so I don't want to. So our wants overtake the needs, and we let our emotions run wild with us. So, for example, if we go back to that story of the 19-year-old who first job, in terms of her boss is so focused on, I need to be right, I don't want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Instead of, I need to hear what you're saying so that I can help you.
Yeah.
And it's just understanding that often people confuse needs and wants, and they don't have huge clarity on what they need to do versus what they want to do. And we allow our emotions to stop us doing what we need to. So, typically in sales, we've got to make you've got to make 5 cold calls a day if you're in sales, and I need to make 5 calls, but I don't want to because my fear of rejection or my fear of whatever is stopping me.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things, is that what happens with abuse is, and we can often abuse ourselves because we let our wants get the better of us. I want to go, if you're on a diet, I want to eat chocolate right now, even though I need to drink a glass of water. But our wants overtake our needs, and we start abusing ourselves without even realize that that's what we're doing, because we're not present to what we need. So if I go back to, the department store I was in yesterday, in terms of over a period of time, that lady will eventually lose her job, because if she's forever on FaceTime with her friend or boyfriend or whoever it is, her want to be connected to people, of her family or whatever, is far greater than the need to work and be present with the client, that she will lose her job, and then she'll blame everybody else, and my boss is this and my boss is that, and oh, it's so unfair, they didn't treat me properly. But if she's completely honest, she didn't do what she needed to do. Because if she did what she needed to do over a period of time, she'd have enough money that she could fulfill the want.
Wow. Now that, like, the way you put that is actually quite solid, because I mean, it's, especially when it comes to, like, people losing their jobs, it's almost one of those things of, I mean, besides the company closing and all of that type of stuff, like, it's people get fired because you want to do what you want to do, not what you needed to do. Right. So, like you said, you need to make 5 calls. Your boss said you need to make 5 calls every single day to bring in new sales. But what you want to do is, actually, I rather want to put these products on Facebook and maybe I'll get more people. But that's what you want to do, what you needed to do, and and then that then comes down to the agreements, and then that doesn't let, it then even ties into more into like the environment as well, right?
Correct, because what happens is you open yourself up for abuse when you do the things you want to do instead of the things you need to do. And then it creates chaos in the environment, because then other people go into agreement with you. Yeah, I also want to make phone calls all day and not do the work. So, and then employees create a non-safe space for other employees. And this is where rules come into play. If you have those rules in place for the behaviors you don't like, so for example, no cell phones at work. If you are in the service industry, I still do not understand how people are allowed to have cell phones and make personal calls in a working environment if they're in the service industry. I still, I don't understand how companies do not have those rules in place, and why other employees don't enforce that. But on the same note, I do understand, because people want to check in on their families and they want to check in. So, you know what, if you do it, it's okay, because then I can do it. So I'm not going to tell anyone if you do it.
Yeah. So we're in it together.
Correct. Not understanding that long term, they're actually putting the whole organization at risk. And they're creating a non-safe space because they're abusing cell phones in the workspace, and then the workspace becomes unsafe, and then clients like me get irritated and frustrated, and then I go, well, I'm never coming back here again, because that one person was on their phone. And then they wonder why they lost their job or why the company closed down, and it's just because they put their wants ahead of their needs.
Yeah, and I mean, that's it. What you're saying there is actually spot on. Because, like, for example, that lady, let's just say she did exactly the same thing to you, to 5 other customers in the day, right? That's every single day for let's just say she works for 7 days. That's 35 people who have decided, I'm not coming here anymore. Like, this store doesn't work for me. And for me, the baffling thing is, like, these people are on their speakerphones. Why is it on your Why is your speakerphone on as well? It's so confusing to me, because that, exactly as you said, it's so abusive and disrespectful to the people that you are serving. You're serving these people, but you're not basically here. You might as well be at home.
Correct. So it is. It's just, and it's understanding that it's very abusive. And whether it's yourself, whether it's somebody else, you're not creating a safe space, and your environment eventually will collapse.
Mm.
Rules in place in order to protect your environment.
Fantastic. Well, before I wrap up, any final thoughts?
I just think this topic, environment is greater than well, has been really powerful, and there's a lot in it. But the biggest thing is be aware of the behaviors and put rules in place, not only to protect you, but to protect your employees, to protect your teams, to protect, you know, your customers. It's so important to have those rules, and people underestimate the power of the rules. And I know we need to put rules in place, but we don't want to because we're afraid of the conflict. But it's understanding that what we need to do is way more important than what we want to. And when you put your needs ahead of your wants, you'll create a way more successful space.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, I think so. If you need to learn and be in an environment that is safe and a space where you can learn and grow and become a better version of yourself, we have Circle of Influence every single Thursday at Corporate Conference Center. Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those spaces where we have rules and people follow those rules, and that's, you know, something I love about the space that we've created there. We've also got, and you know, from the 1st of July, we got the Awaken Your Greatness program. $100 gets you in. I feel like this is a space where if you want to learn how to be present with yourself and be present with how you operate and behave, yeah, Awaken Your Greatness it's a perfect sort of intro into that. It's only $100, very, very affordable. And you know, the great thing is it's focused on you. It's not focused on anybody else. It's focused on how you can control yourself and maintain who you are. And yeah, I mean, Nicole masterfully facilitates that program for you guys, and it's going to be really cool. And then if you need to increase your sales, if you need to get your team going, if you need to, you know, really get them excited, we have got the sales explosion happening on the 4th and 5th of August. And well, before that, we actually have Ignite Your Sales. It's a free 2-hour session with Barry, where he'll basically be giving you a breakdown of what the sales explosion is actually about. But I think more importantly, he actually gives you tools and techniques that you can leave with from those 2 hours. And that's free at the Corporate Conference Center. That is happening on the 24th of July, which is a Monday. We had our first one yesterday that we haven't had in a while. 75 people. It was really awesome. It was a really great experience. So yeah, we've got a few events on the go. So yeah, just click the links, get yourself registered, get your teams registered, and we look forward to having you guys in our space. Again, thank you so much, Nicole, for this topic. I think it was very insightful. I'm intrigued to use abuse when it comes to next month's topic, which is finance. That's going to be a good one, because I think there's a few things to unpack there. But as I said, from next month, the month of July, we will be talking finance, money and finance. And yeah, it's going to be really, really awesome. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe wherever you are in the world. And we will see you guys next week on the Uncovering Greatness podcast. Thank you for your time, Nicole. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Sully. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye.
Goodbye.